This is kind of a part two for responding to your question about how did I do canning or blanching when the kids were small. When they're smaller, it's true that you have less time, but what's to your advantage is that your kids eat less. So you have to do less. The large amounts of canning you'll have to do when they're bigger and eat more. You can prepare for now. In the meantime, you have time to practice, and I think that that's a huge asset. When you practice, if you're thinking about it, you can be watching for ways to learn shortcuts. And there are. Usually when people start out canning, they do things a more complicated way. They don't know what exactly is necessary and what isn't. So an old hand knows shortcuts, and you can learn those. Finding how much time it takes to tackle an actual product, you can learn now. Different types of vegetables or fruit take different amounts of time. The process is different for each one. You'll learn these as you practice. Learning to stagger your schedule. Which vegetable can wait a little longer in that box over there, and which ones have to be dealt with right away. Which ones are about to come in out of the garden. When you've planted beans, you'll not only learn how many beans do you actually have to plant, how many you can actually cope with, and how do you fit them into your schedule. When you watch them coming on, you'll learn as they're blossoming. You can gauge and even put it almost on your calendar. So that you can hit a stride, you can get a rhythm, and you can manage it, because you'll know in 3 days I have to deal with that, or okay, my dill is getting ready, I want to do this with my dill or that. You'll learn to deal with produce also before it goes bad. That's another thing. Some summers it comes all at once. Sometimes it trickles in. Sometimes a neighbor brings boxes of food, produce that they have extra. Generally in those boxes you have to go through and eliminate, because there's some stuff that isn't worth putting in a jar or in the freezer. That's why it's on your step. And you'll learn to deal with that quickly so that the spoilage doesn't spread, and you'll be able to rescue more of it then. And you'll know how much of it to deal with too. I used to feel that if it came in my door, I had to put it all down if it was savable. Now I realize I've got so many jars. That's another thing. I organized my canning room so that I knew when those shelves were full of beans, I was done doing beans that way. If I wanted to freeze some, I knew how many I had to. But the amount of shelf space you have kind of reminds you how much you need to actually put down. And for what? You don't want to fill all your jars with rhubarb juice, which I have done too much rhubarb juice in the past, because that's the first fruit that I can make juice with, so I just made a lot. And then the crab apples came on and other fruits, and I didn't need so much rhubarb juice. You'll learn to gauge how much you need to do of what, and eliminate the extra or the spoilage. And you'll figure out ways to put more down in different forms as you go along too. Organizing your canning equipment, that's a big one. You don't use it all year, but when you need it organized. I don't want to, if suddenly I'm doing some canning, going, where's that green funnel? I need that scoop. Or I have certain things that I use for canning certain types of vegetables or fruit. I keep those things together so that when apple season starts, for instance, I get my stuff for doing apples. I'm not trying to track down different items that have gotten buried in with all the rest of my equipment. I better put my glasses on here so I can read my list, so I can make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, learning to gauge what's going to come at you and when is valuable. And that comes with time. Everybody understands it a bit, but the more you do it, the better you get at it, so that you can get a rhythm, get a stride, get a routine. And the first few days of canning season start, everybody's a little rusty, but you just get into it very quickly if you have been practicing. Another thing is, some people wait and wait until you've got a whole bunch to do at once. There will be times when there's massive amounts of stuff to do and it's a heavy schedule, but sometimes things can be done a little early. You see some things coming on, do a few. You don't need to wait till you have to do all of the beets. You can do some ahead, for example, or there's other vegetables that come on like that too. Anyway, use your time now while everybody's small, and the other video was more about managing your household so that it's conducive to being ready to do canning. And that's why I mentioned procrastinating, because I really hate working in a muddle. Everything's so much harder. So if I know I'm going to be doing canning some evening, then during the day my mind is thinking, okay, I'm preparing my workspace, I'm getting ready to tackle this as soon as everybody's down, or I get some things done while they're napping to prepare for when I can actually tackle it in the evening, or which things I can include them in. So I'm thinking canning during the day, and so when I do get a chance, I can go at it. But it helps to have a clean workspace, all my equipment in one. And another thing is, I find people gather too much equipment. It really doesn't make it that much easier. In fact, I think it makes it a bit harder. Better to have a few really good, useful, big, if that's the thing. I like big, useful pieces of equipment that you know work for many articles of produce, and then you're not shuffling through piles of stuff looking for just the right thing. I guess that does it for now. If I think of more things, I'll let you know. And here's another little thing. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes you have a mother-in-law or somebody who's willing to help you, or do some for you on her own space, in her own space, on her own time. Just don't be afraid to ask. That's all I have to say for now. Talk to you again.